While this is a T-rated game, this review has some adult content in it, so viewer discretion is advised. How many times is American Laser Games going to release this game? At what point do they make back that $100 investment that they spent on the actors in this game? I guess I'm to blame for their re-releasing of this game as well. Because the second I saw that it was available for the Wii, I rented it without hesitation. Now that this game is out, you know what's coming next. I guarantee it. Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. The two other games that seem to be released over and over again. And what do you know? A year later, the Dragon's Lair Trilogy came out for the Wii. Now, I may have been kidding at the time about them doing it, but really, it made sense. If they're going to release Mad Dog McCree on the Wii, why not Dragon's Lair? Okay, this is going to show you guys how old I really am. You see, I remember playing this game in the arcades when it first came out. Dragon's Lair just amazed me. It was colorful and had cartoonish graphics. When you saw the arcade machines that it was up against in its day, it's no surprise that it was such a hit with the arcade crowd, even at the insane price of 50 cents. I know it's pretty common nowadays to see an arcade machine that costs 50 cents, but back then it was a pretty rare thing to see, and it was completely worth it though. If you've never played these types of games before, it's really very simple. You just press the D-pad in the direction shown on the screen, and if you need to use your sword, you just press the 2 button. As easy as that might sound, it's really not. You're going to need to use fast reflexes to advance through the castle. It will rarely give you any leeway on pressing the wrong button, and you will see your character die on screen very often. Dragon's Lair started a brand new genre of gameplay that was all about memorization. Now, to be honest, most of the copycat games were terrible. You know, and thinking about it, most of them came out for the Sega CD, and sadly, I think I played them all. Next to the Dragon's Lair series, the best one that I've ever played was Avenger. That one was done really well, and the animations were really fun to watch. The story in the first game is about Dirk the Daring, who's on a quest to rescue Princess Daphne. Wait a second, that's Princess Daphne? I gotta say, whoa! Ho ho! I can see why Dirk is rescuing her. She is fine. Look at her squirming around in that gravity ball, twisting her low-cut, where was I? Oh yeah, she's been kidnapped by a dragon who wants her for some reason. I don't know. But you know what? I really can't blame the dragon. I'd want her too. The only real downside about her character is her voice.
Please save me. The cage is locked with a key.
Really? It was locked with a key? Because, you know, this whole time I was actually thinking it was being locked with, oh, I don't know, piece of baloney. Thanks for clarifying, Daphne, that it was locked with a key. One of the best parts of Dragon's Lair was the rooms that you had to go into. It really felt, even when it was completely insane and implausible, that it was appropriate for where he was. It really felt like you were going along with Dirk on his adventure to save Daphne. Now, the Wii title has the option to play the arcade version or the home version. The home version had scenes that the arcade version had deleted from the game. One of the most famous deleted scenes was the drawbridge scene, but I could see why it was cut. It was a very simple scene that really wasn't needed. I could see the developers just wanted to get the players into the castle, and they didn't really want to focus too much on the story of how he got into it. Now, the other option that I liked in the arcade version, in comparison to the home version, was that when you died, it took you to a new room in the castle, instead of making you finish out that room until you lost all your lives. It really kept the game fresh and fun. The game's main push was memorization, and if you were good enough, you could beat the game in one try, if you remembered everything. To try and combat that, almost every room has an opposite version of it. It was a clever way to increase the amount of rooms in the castle, while still keeping it somewhat challenging. One of the great things about Dragon's Lair is the rooms were fairly small, so that meant you wouldn't have to wait too long in order to get to another room. Unlike the other games on the disc, the difficulty level wasn't as high because of the frequent checkpoints. Now, unfortunately, the same can't be said for the cluster known as Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp. I so wanted to like this game, but this title goes so off the reservation in regards to any lick of sanity that it makes the game not at all fun to play. The story is about Dirk finding out that Princess Daphne has been kidnapped again, as it was so nicely told to us in the very first scene by his lovely mother-in-law.
Kidnapped? My Daphne kidnapped again? Idiot! Don't cough! You better fight my daughter!
She chases him down into the dragon's castle, which I was always wondering, why and how does a dragon have a castle? But whatever. He goes down to the dragon's lair and he finds Daphne being held by the evil wizard Mardrock. The wizard escapes with Daphne to a different dimension, and Dirk follows them in his own conveniently found dimension hopping machine. Dirk goes from one strange location to another. It was incredibly stupid. I'm sure some people liked it. I found it unappealing to play, and it felt like they just wanted to make an excuse to come up with some crazy level designs without the handicap of keeping it in the castle. It just didn't work. It was just too crazy at times. Also, the periods between the checkpoints were too far apart. This title wouldn't have been as bad if the sections had better checkpoints in it, because it was really frustrating to make one mistake, then have to do a section all over again, and that could take minutes to get back to where you might have just died. Now, the third one you might guess is Dragon's Lair 3. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's a game called Space Ace. It has nothing to do with the Dragon's Lair series, other than it's made from the same engine, and it's made by the same company. But I do have to question, why did they call this game the Dragon's Lair Trilogy when there's only 2 Dragon's Lair games on it? This one wasn't as crazy as Dragon's Lair 2 in the locations that they had you go. The thing that made it not as crazy was the fact that it was located in space. And that made it okay to go to crazy locations. It didn't just have a bunch of scenes out of context like Dragon's Lair 2. Now the story is about Ace, who has to stop the evil Commander Borf from turning the world into kids with his Infanto Ray. In his attempt to stop Borf, he gets shot with the ray and gets turned into a child. But luckily, Ace has a watch that will let him turn back into an adult for a limited amount of time. And then it needs to be recharged in order to use it again. The ability to turn into an adult is completely optional. The game would actually play slightly different if you didn't change into an adult. Like, for example, a situation where you had to blast your way through an enemy. As a child, you would just avoid the bad guys. While the gameplay isn't as insane to watch as Dragon's Lair 2, it is still a bit stale. I just didn't enjoy the many levels they had to offer, but there were way more voices in this one. But unfortunately, they were just as awful as the other titles.
Kimberly, come in. Are you okay?
Oh, sure. I'm just kidnapped by aliens, that's all.
I'll save you, Kimmy.
Get me out of here!
In fact, I can think of one voice in any of these games that wasn't bad. However, to be fair, they used their fellow team members in the development team to voice the characters to save money, so it is kind of understandable. All the titles can be played with a set number of lives, or even unlimited lives is an option as well. Plus, if you want, they give you the option to sit back and just watch any of the titles from beginning to end without pressing one button. So if you're more interested in how the story is going to be played out than actually playing the game, then you will enjoy this option once. The Dragon's Lair Trilogy is a great port of the arcade machine, but does that mean it's worth the $30 the publishers are asking for it? There is about an hour and a half worth of gameplay to enjoy. You could try and beat the higher difficulty levels to increase the fun, but really its replayability is quite low. Please don't get me wrong, I love Dragon's Lair. It was really fun to go back and experience, but it just isn't worth a buy. But you should at least play it once in your life to enjoy one of the most unique arcade games ever created. So I do think it's worth a rent.
You will